All right. Hello, my name is Carly Nelson, and I am interviewing Miss Teresa Farley. We are at Applebee's in Princeton, and it is currently 7:02 p.m. on Sunday night. Miss Farley, we are going to start with our consent to interview. You will be read a series of questions and statements about educational research in the field of teaching special education. You'll be asked to respond to them in an interview setting. All responses will be recorded with your permission. Video is preferable, but audio recording is also an option. All information used will be pulled from the recordings to ensure accuracy in my use of your responses. You may choose to remain individually anonymous for the interview, but I do ask that we be able to use your place of work, experience, and position to be able to compare results in categories. You'll be given a pseudonym if you desire to remain anonymous, and the interview is expected to take between 30 minutes to an hour. There are no expected risks for you to encounter, nor alternative procedures that would be advantageous to you. And I do ask that you not use the actual names of your students, their parents, or coworkers, so we can maintain their confidentiality, unless that includes me. We hope that you will see benefit in the research being conducted, in that it may have an influence in how educational research is implemented in the future of your profession. You may withdraw from the interview or withdraw your consent to use the information gathered from the interview up until it has been submitted online, which I plan to do so on November 24th, 2018, without any penalty. The information from the interview will only be used to post to Concord University's Education 320 Blackboard page, and no prior information about the interviewee, outside of this interview will be used. You may feel free to contact me by my cell phone or email at any time, which you already have, if you have any questions or concerns about the study being conducted. And you may also contact my professor, Dr. Williams, for Education 320 via his email about the study if you would prefer, and I can supply you with that information. And there will be no formal compensation for agreeing to be part of this study. So at this time, that should cover everything that we need. Do you at this time consent to video recording?
Yes.
Okay. Do you consent to answering questions asked at your will and understand that you can withdraw at any time?
Yes.
Okay. Do you consent to letting me interview you for my research assignment to be used in my Education 320 class?
Yes.
Okay. Do you consent to me posting the findings derived from our interview on my Blackboard account?
Yes.
Okay. And you consent to not having compensation for this study?
Yes.
Okay. And last, in general, do you agree to all of our other methods, terms, conditions, and uses of the research that we mentioned prior? Okay. Then I think we have it. So we're going to start with a questionnaire. And depending on your answers might change what question is asked next, but we'll just roll with it. First of all, are you a teacher?
Yes.
Okay. Where have you taught here recently?
I've taught at a high school for the last 9 or 10 years, and now I'm at an elementary school.
Okay. Where do you teach currently?
At the Spanish-Bird School in Mercer County.
Okay. And that's elementary?
Elementary.
Okay. What grade levels have you taught in your career?
In my career, K through 12.
Nice.
And also, currently I'm teaching 4th and 5th grade.
Sounds good. What subjects have you taught, or what areas have you taught in?
In regular ed, I've taught in history and social studies, and special ed, I've taught self-contained and English and social studies, science, a lot of different things in inclusion.
Nice, a wide breadth. Okay, very nice. So you mentioned special ed. How long have you taught in special education?
28 years.
Wow, that is awesome. Perfect. With that in mind, what do you use to determine your instruction for your students? How do you decide what you're going to teach?
Most of my instruction is based on data. It's based on, whenever I begin a class, it's based on formative assessment. So I just try to see where all the students are at the begin, and then I go from there.
Okay, so based off of where they were prior. So we would consider that to be research on their background and data from their past years. Am I
Correct.
understanding that? Okay. So with that being said, do you do any reading about educational research?
Yes, I use research-based instruction. Currently, I've just been trained in 4 or 5 different methods using capturing kids' hearts, using the whole child, lots of different writing and reading strategies. And I participate in book studies, jigsaw book studies, where each teacher reads a separate chapter, and then we all post it online. So do a lot of research-based instruction.
And that's all at Spanishburg?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. And that takes care of actually the next question. What kinds of educational research do you read about? The next one, do you conduct any of your own research within your classroom to use?
Not specifically. I do use I use different methods for my exit tickets. I'll use for formative assessment, I'll use online. It's called Socrative.com, and the kids go online at the end of every class and answer 2 questions about their day and what did they learn, what did they struggle with. So I do use research-based strategies for the students, but I don't conduct any research on my own.
Okay. So let's see. So Socratic, is that the name of the tool?
Right, Socrative.com, and it's just an online back-channeling device where the kids actually in real time tell me what they're doing, and all the kids can see each other's answers, but I'll do it by numbers. All the kids have a number, and they get to put up what they're struggling with at the time, or from my lesson what they struggled with, and then we can go back and analyze the results and see. So actually, I guess it is research, but it's more of a formative assessment.
Okay, fair enough. So you use what you find from the kids based off of those exit slips to determine
the next day's instruction.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So I guess that answers what prompts you to conduct the research in a roundabout way, but specifically, how would you answer that? What makes you do those exit tickets?
I just want to make sure, because I teach an inclusive classroom, so I may have maybe 6 kids in one class that have IEPs and 504 plans, 7 in the next, and 4 or 5 in the next. So the 3 classes, I just want to make sure all the kids are getting it.
Okay. So student success.
Right.
Very nice. Okay. So in tools and methods that you use to conduct your research, you've already mentioned those. Are there any additional that you can think of? It's okay.
I use a lot of different strategies, teaching strategies, to make sure that every student understands. I do a thing called On Your Mark, where I use colored index cards, and I just randomly hand them out, and on each colored index card there's a different colored star. So each student will, whenever I say On Your Mark, they find the person with the same index colored card that they have, but then they explain the answer to each other. Whatever question I ask, they all discuss it within that group, but they don't know who's going to be called upon. So then I choose a different colored star. I just randomly choose it. So it may be that the lowest child in the classroom may get called upon. So that's a way to ensure that all kids are having a chance or a say.
Nice, very nice. These strategies and technology that you mentioned, are those ideas you've come up with on your own, or where have you found those ideas?
Yeah, read them from books mainly. The last book, called Ready to Go, is a research-based and book that we're doing a book study on, and within our school, and all teachers have to participate. And then some of the other strategies I've learned in, actually a really good place for strategies and a place to learn is Twitter chats. There are Twitter chats almost every evening on some different topic, and you can go in and on Twitter and put hashtag special ed Twitter chats, and people from all across the country will have guiding questions, and you get to participate and answer questions from many different people and see how people do it all across the United States, and even across the world. People participate in the Twitter chats.
I think I've heard of that before, actually. Nice. Okay, so that takes care of that one. So do you use the research that you conduct or read in your classroom? You've already answered that, actually. What kinds of research do you use? We've been able to hit How often would you say you implement that research that you've conducted or that you've read within your classroom?
Daily, we do what's called Daily 5 in our classroom, and it's where students are given the option to read to self, read to someone, work on writing, work on reading, or they have options, so they get to choose that daily, which is absolutely awesome because it's all about reading in content areas. And they get to go to their station, and then they stay there for 10 minutes, whatever, and then you switch stations. So they get to use that daily, and also the whole brain concept and the research that's used school-wide. So all the teachers have the same classroom expectations, same classroom rules. Whenever we want to focus a class, we just say class, class. They know to say yes, yes, and focus, but it's done school-wide,
That's
kindergarten
nice.
through 5th grade. So that research has really been proven to be effective because the kids respond so quickly.
Awesome. Okay, so daily use. Let's see. Do you feel pressure to implement research within your profession? Good or bad?
At the beginning I did, because I was so overwhelmed going from the high school to the elementary, and there were so many different things that they used. So I was overwhelmed, but when I started using it and understanding, the more I read about it, I absolutely loved it because the kids were so responsive to it. And you're trying to work to the whole child. We use so many positive behavior interventions. We use the energy bus. We use the 7 habits of highly effective people. So we read so much and implement it. So I'm not as stressed now once I got some of the reading done.
Good. So you mentioned you have felt pressure to implement research within your classroom. From what entities do you feel pressure to use that research?
Well, I just wanted to make sure I was doing it right, and I didn't have the training yet. So the pressure was to do everything the right way, and one of the best ways after the reading, because of course I couldn't read 7 books in 1 month, but after the reading and the understanding and asking other teachers for help and how they did it, actually the kids will help you. They'll say, no, we don't do it that way, or this is how we do it. So the pressure was just not knowing everything all at one time.
Okay, and pressure from where?
From myself.
From yourself.
From within,
Gotcha.
yes. It's just not knowing and wanting to be able to do it right and not knowing.
Okay. And we've mentioned how you implement educational research as a teacher. We've gotten to cover that. What do you feel the research that you use affects, if anything? Out of lesson plans, documentation, instructional strategies, behavioral management, or professional relationships, or anything else that you can think of?
Well, I think with consistency, it helps all the students, it helps the teachers, it helps everybody be on the same page. And the research, if you're willing and open-minded and don't mind to learn new things, and you're willing to do it, it benefits all of the kids, especially the kids who struggle a little bit. If they can know how to voice their concerns to the teacher, then it helps them be better learners and more confident learners. So,
Nice. So the students in the learning process primarily?
yes.
Okay. And then, did you attend graduate school in an educational field?
Yes, my master's is in special ed.
Awesome. Would you say that conducting and implementing research was a large focus in your graduate studies?
Yes, it wasn't as practical as it is now because I do get to actually use what I'm reading immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like it's just theory. Whenever you put it in practice, it's much easier to understand it.
Yes. And then, do you believe that graduate level education affects a teacher's ability to be able to conduct and use research within their profession?
Oh, definitely. You have to have the data. You have to have the ability to go out and find out what's working and ask the right questions. And research is very, very, very important. It's just like formative assessments, data driven, and you can look at the research. You don't have to believe everything or to understand everything that you read, but the research is so important.
All right. Are there trainings on educational research offered in your county, Mercer County?
I don't think specifically the educational research, but the strategies that are proven, the research-based strategies that are proven through educational research.
Okay, so not how to conduct your research, but they
How to
bring in
implement.
research strategies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so they aren't offered specifically on how to conduct research. How often are these research-based strategy trainings offered?
Probably twice a year at the county level. However, I teach at a Title I school, and we have trainings once a month, at least once a month, and sometimes more.
Fair, fair. How often do you think that trainings on educational research should be offered as far as conducting and reading and using educational research?
I think there's value in the educational research if it's done specifically to the group of students that you're going to be working with to implement the research. But I think the actual educational research is probably not as practical as the strategies from understanding the research.
Okay. And then that kind of answers the next one. What aspects of educational research do you think might be important for potential trainings to focus on? If I heard you correctly, you thought that it was the application of what has already been researched.
Correct.
More useful.
And just like the Daily 5 that is used in many areas and across the country, the Daily 5, someone had to research it. Had to go into school and someone had to do the research specifically to know that it worked. So I think that in that way research is very important. It's just that I don't know how it would help specifically me to do research and get it published. I don't understand. I don't really know if that would be real helpful to someone teaching in a completely different environment than what I teach in.
Alrighty. Let's see. So, with the following statements, just let me know if you strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, are indifferent or unsure, if you partially agree, or if you strongly agree with the following. So basically a 1 through 5 rating scale. So the first statement is educational research is important in improving instruction in the classroom.
I strongly agree.
Strongly agree. Research is vital in appropriately developing IEPs.
Strongly agree.
Reading research should be expected in the teaching profession.
I think so, but I don't know from whom. I mean, I don't think the individual teacher has the ability to conduct the research unless it's really specific and the data can be useful.
Okay. So as far as the individual teacher, reading research should be expected within that individual teacher's job description.
I think so.
Agree, disagree?
Oh, I forgot that.
No, it's
we were
okay.
doing those.
You're fine.
So agree.
You agree? Okay. And then lastly, conducting research should be expected in the teaching profession, or conducting research. So actually...
Maddie ran to the bathroom.
Agree.
Okay. Then I think that takes care of our interview and our questions. Is there any additional commentary that you wanted to add, or anything you wanted to clarify on that you can think of?
I just started something new called the Mind Up curriculum. It's from the Goldie Hawn Foundation, and it's all about brain research, and it's teaching the students how the brain works in order for them to understand when they get stressed or when they understand. And so far I've taught them about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, and they really seem to be enjoying that. And that's all based on research. I mean, it's not research that I've conducted, but it's research that I can use. And anytime I find a strategy that works for kids, I don't mind to try it.
Well, in a way, is that conducting research on themselves with their reaction to...
Definitely, they know how that the amygdala, they know how to calm it down by breathing or counting to 10 so the hippocampus can send the information to the prefrontal cortex so they know the process. So the whole, and I just found that curriculum online. I'd heard about it, so I bought the book online. And that's why I think using other people's research, if you're willing to be open, and I use that in my health class, so if you're willing to look at other people's research, and if it's research-based and look at other people's strategies, then that's part of being a teacher, even if you're not actually conducting the research yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Farley, for your time. I
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.